Forward to the questions, maybe from the business community. I'm not sure, Tiffany, how you wanted this presentation from each of us and then question and answers. Sure.
Okay, yeah, so again, at the water supply, we're in close contact with Darrell and the Civil Defense team, and we have had a discussion with our staff as early as this morning, what our plans are for possible different scenarios of various crossing locations. Our staff has identified key valve locations, things like that. For us, as a water utility, one benefit is that we do have some time to prepare. We're making phone calls for backup generators for our Kalapana Pahoa sources. Although we know Roger's going to keep us energized. But, you know, so again, we have our key valves identified. We've gone through this once before when Kalapana, Black Sand Beach, was inundated as well. So, you know, we have various plans in place, but we're not going to know exactly what we need to do until we get a little bit closer to the crossing.
Yeah, so as Darrell said, we met as recently as this morning to try to give him a rundown on what Hawaii Electric Light's plan is. Basically, our plan is, we know how important the power is to everybody, so we want to keep power on every way possible. Any way possible we can keep the power on, that's what we want to do. If circumstances change to where we can't avoid that, then we are in the process of making contingency plans to see about actually building other lines around it. Darrell mentioned they're opening up the Beach Road. We're actually looking at that to run a new line up Beach Road, if necessary, to try to feed electricity to the subdivisions from the other side. The big concerns, the other concerns that we have are our transmission lines. We have one transmission line that is probably one of the first assets that we have that'll be affected by the lava. We're working with the engineers right now to see if there's anything we can do to make sure that we can keep that transmission line in service. The problem is, as everybody knows, we don't know exactly where this lava flow is going to go, and when it gets there, exactly how wide it's going to be. All our conductors are above ground, they're on poles, so if it takes poles out, if it takes one pole out, that's normally not a big issue. We can cut that wire free, we can float it between the other two poles. If it takes two poles out, okay, but at a certain point, it just becomes where it's the sag in the wire is not going to allow us to do that. It's going to be too long of a span, and we're not going to be able to maintain that. So the big thing is going to be not only where it comes through, but how wide the front of that lava flow is when it gets there. But again, we do have contingency plans to try to work around that. There are two transmission lines feeding PGV. They need at least one of those, obviously, to keep going, and so that's a big concern to us too. Two of them is better. That would avoid more issues for them. But again, we do have as many contingencies as we can think of, and we're actively working with Civil Defense to keep us updated.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm Karina Antonio, Keats Manager and Chief Engineer for the Department of Water Supply. I'd just like to add that you've heard Chief Darrell say that, you know, roads is critical. You heard HELCO say power is critical. Of course, water is critical. What we're thinking of at the Water Department, as Keith mentioned, is that we've talked about it, and you know, basically it's a wait and see. But obviously, access to our water system is very important. Power to our water system is very important. So hopefully, we won't be faced with too much of a criticalness with those conditions. But you know, it's a wait and see. Just so we all in this room can understand how we operate and maintain our system and what may happen or may not happen. What we're hoping it won't happen is that we will have to isolate our water system. For example, we have 2 wells located in the Kianopoko area and 2 wells in the Pahoa, close to the school area. The unfortunate thing is the 2 wells on that end by the school are not operable at this time. We're procuring emergency contractor to get that online as soon as possible. The 2 wells in Kianopoko are operating fine. I'm not worried on that end because we can feed water from Ola Mountain View water system up to Pahoa, in fact. But if access or our ability to maintain our system, if the lava flow crosses over 130, we might have to isolate that system or that area between possibly Kianopoko and Pahoa. But the thing about the Pahoa wells is that, yeah, we're in the process of procuring an emergency contractor. Hopefully we can get that contract on board as soon as possible so that we can get our Pahoa well back online. Otherwise, you know, it's a wait and see. Again, access is critical, power is critical. In fact, one of the things that we talked about in our operations that we may have to, before lava flow inundation, we may have to house maybe a maintenance vehicle on the other side of the flow so that, you know, we can at least get to that area either through ferry or helicopter so that we can maintain the system that is cut off from the lava flow. But anyway, we're open to questions and other comments from the public at this point.
Okay, this woman's raising her hand. I think we'll do the same sort of system that we've seen at the other community meetings. Please come up and state your question in the mic, if that's okay, because then people will say, I can't hear the question. Yeah. Come line up for your questions, and then Hazel has a few remarks.
So basically on the back table, we've tried to provide some resources for the businesses. And at this moment in time, it's really about disaster preparedness. Okay, so a lot of the focus is on, for the small businesses, on the planning process. So on the back table, we've brought in the SBA resource guide, and we have a limited number of copies, so I would hope that the business owners would be the ones picking these up. If not, and we run out, we'll be happy to get more of them down here for Tiffany. But this resource guide has a whole section on page 36 about disaster preparedness and the different types of loans should a disaster be declared by the SBA that would be available here, both for personal injury, homeowner injury, as well as business injury. What we've also brought is a couple of documents that might help you start thinking about your disaster plan and your disaster preparedness. So the first one is a checklist to help you identify the critical business functions. So we all have a lot of functions in our business that we do from month to month, but we also have a few functions that in order for us to keep the doors open, those things have to occur. So you want to hone in on those critical functions, and the other functions can slide for a while until you get through the difficult time. I also brought a sheet that has a checklist for emergency communications. So that is a good thing for you to have for the business and also to communicate that to your employees. I also have a recovery overview. So this is basically a step-by-step plan, again, a checklist easy to follow of how you're going to be able to recover the functions of the business. I also brought a vendor assessment. So many of us in our businesses have a supply chain. We have vendors that provide us parts or raw materials so that we can add the value and then sell that to the end customer. So you want to think about what happens if you can't get any of your supplies in. All right, so you want to go and start doing a little bit of planning, working with your vendors, making sure that, again, you've identified only what you need to get you through the crisis period. And last but not least, what to take when you evacuate. Again, it's a checklist. So we're hoping that that gives you at least a basis for your planning. And a couple of other pointers would be consider moving some of the functions of your company into the cloud. So for instance, if you use QuickBooks and you sit at your laptop and you do that data entry, if you actually move that function into the cloud, you can access your financials from your company from any device, anywhere. So you might think about that. Also think about if you're a home-based business and you have to leave your home. Think about finding other small businesses that could either partner up with you on a small space that you might all take out together, might have to be in town, and come together for a short-term lease on that, or find a business who has excess square footage that they're not using, they'd be willing to sublet to you. So thinking again, how can I best preserve my business and the function of the business in the short term? Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel, and thanks to the entire panel that came out today. We really appreciate it. I was trying to get an insurance representative here to discuss with you details of your insurance plans that you really need to hone in on. So I just urge you to contact your different insurance agencies before you need them, in case. And we have a lineup here. Just a friendly reminder, these are commercially focused, commerce-focused questions, just so I don't have to call in the police or something. I'm joking, please. Let's not go there. Okay, and if you just know that we're playing with this microphone, so if you could ask your question and then pass the mic up to the person that you want answering it, okay?
Talk to them. I have a statement whether we can have an actual additional backup to businesses as far as electricity and charging of cell phones. We did, otherwise I'm floriculture. And whether we can use something like OTEC barges. They actually did generate electricity before. Is that a possibility? And open up maybe a harbor or port and stuff like that, and even young brothers can come in. Thank you.
Her question is about cell phone charging stations and OTEC being utilized for barges. Young brothers.
If everyone doesn't mind, I'll stand down here because I'm sure a lot of questions will be coming my way. But as far as communications, similar to power, communications is another critical piece that we want to maintain. So it's not just the Hawaiian Tel landline and Oceanic Time Warner services, but it's also the cell services and Wi-Fi or internet connectivity. So things that we've been already reaching out for is, one is just as HELCO is looking how their infrastructure will be affected possibly, it's Hawaiian Tel and Oceanic because they share some of the same poles and corridors, identifying their workarounds as well. On the Wi-Fi or cellular side, we've already talked to AT&T and Verizon about the availability and mobilization of what we call cellular on wheels, which is mobile cellular sites that can provide connectivity for cellular service. So we're trying to identify those as well as those vendors or service providers that have repeater sites, towers that may need backup power. If they need assistance, we can identify what those needs are now and have those assets available to mobilize if and when the tower sites are affected. On the harbors, in discussing with Department of Land and Natural Resources, that is not an easy do to create a new harbor. But we have discussed, and I've been in contact with several boat captains of large vessels, and these are primarily commercial vessels that are either doing fishing or even with the lava tours. But their role that they could play in moving people as well as resources if we need to move things in and out of Wahiki. But to create a new harbor and pier that could accommodate a barge would be very difficult and not a very, I want to say, fast accomplished task. Not to say that wouldn't be continue to be looked at as a long-term solution depending on the impact of this eruption event. But it may not be something that would be a short-term solution for some of that. On the connectivity with the highways, there's also been discussion with, similar to HELCO's consideration of expanding or lengthening the spans between the poles so that they can maintain the wire and connections between the different areas. It's looking, how can we bridge over or around the lava flow if it does cross the highway? So those solutions are already being explored as far as what the Corps of Engineers, the military also has with temporary bridging capability to get around the lava flow to ensure that connectivity by road as well. So I'm not sure if I got all of the points in her questions, but that's pretty much it.
Before I pass the mic on, I just wanted to say, folks from Malama Market, Island Naturals, Paul's Repair, anybody who, like the gas stations, I really feel like it's very important you do not leave this meeting unless you make a personal connection with Daryl Oliveira today, because he really needs to make contact with you. So please don't leave, connect with him after the meeting. Thank you, and we'll turn it over to Dan.
Hi, thank you all for being here. I'm Dan DeMizio. I'm the director of the Puna Community Medical Center at the Pahoa Marketplace. In the audience is a bunch of our board of directors, and probably 75% of the people in this room have come to that facility for health services. We have a kind of a different role, and given the fact that one of the scenarios has lava running right through the Pahoa Marketplace, we're looking to be as portable as possible, not to stop providing services, but to provide them somewhere else. Perhaps the National Guard has a mobile van or a tent. Our IT person, Jeff Gray with Netcom, assured me this morning that we could pack up everything in our clinic, IT-wise, put it in a car, move it to a place, and he could get us reestablished in a half of a day. Moving medical equipment and whatnot would be a little bit a different problem, but if we could be mobile or have another place to go, we wouldn't have to stop providing care. And so that's, you know, if the electricity goes off, we need power. If the water goes off, we need water. But that doesn't separate us from anybody else. So anyway, that's my issue.
No, and to add to that, I'm not sure if you read the meeting last night, but we did ask the Department of Health to already put the DMAT team on notice that they might be requested to support exactly what you're asking for, is the mobile capability with healthcare. So we'll be working closely with you and the physicians of the community with how do we then provide for access to healthcare for those that, you know, may be cut off or have difficulty in getting access to healthcare. We're not worried about the 911 system because with the fire department, they are already identifying what they would be moving as far as resources. Should there be an obstruction in the highway, repositioning assets on the side that's obstructed or isolated so that 911 services would be maintained at the same level you're getting now. But as far as the day-to-day access to healthcare, there's going to be a need that we're going to need to work together with you and others.
Sure, I'd like to know, we don't need to do this right now, but I'd like to know what the next steps would be for us to make those connections with the Department of Health about mobile vans or whatever. And just to let you know, I surveyed my entire staff this morning, and they are all willing to keep doing this on whatever basis we need to.
No, your staff should be commended, and again, the community should be commended at large. You folks have done an extraordinary job with the response and recovery from the storm, and now facing another critical event, you know, on the horizon. And we need everybody's help. I'm not too proud to say that. We need everybody's help. Government does not have all the solutions. You have a lot of good ideas. You have a lot of good resources. We need your help. So we'll be working very closely with Dan and his team and Department of Health on ensuring healthcare needs are provided for.
I am Nancy Kramer. I'm a certified public accountant in Pahoa, and a number of my clients are in the audience. But one of the things that comes up regularly for the business people is how do we establish some level of predictability as to our ability to go out and get resources? Can we get fuel to keep our generators going, whatever we're doing? I think the most common question at this point is how long is it going to take before Chain of Craters is worked on, since that's a major route. And even the possibility of, would there be a priority system established, for example, that business people could have a certain time that they were allowed on the road to get their errands done that might not include the general public. Now, we're obviously not talking about a critical emergency state, but how do we keep going so that those of us that aren't covered by LAVA still have a business when we're done?
And you brought up some really good points that are currently being discussed, and again, we need input from the business community. You mentioned one, and that was like an alternate schedule for traffic flow. When we looked at the state highway road counts or traffic counts in this area, from the intersection just to the south of Kahakai Boulevard, if we look at the daily average vehicle counts, we're looking in excess of 7,000 vehicles driving through that corridor. When you get just to the Keao side of Kahakai, it goes up by 3,000, so just about 11,000 vehicles moving through that corridor. So you can imagine how much of that is for one, just day-to-day activities of you as residents, things like, kids going to school, people going to work, all of these things, and it's going to be a significant burden placed on everyone shouldering that load of where traffic is routed through and how challenging it's going to be. If you can picture the traffic going through Railroad Avenue and Beach Road through Paradise Park, that is going to change the lifestyle for the people in Paradise Park. And again, that's where we all are looking for help. Question as far as chain of creators, State Highways is working very closely with the National Park. We're meeting with Cindy Orlando from the park very shortly to discuss what more can we do at the county level to expedite the approvals and the process of moving forward with reestablishing chain of creators, and knowing full well that that's a possible road that could be affected sometime in the future if the flow changes again. But providing access and connectivity is, as I mentioned, a priority. So looking at every route, including chain of creators.
Hi, I'm Bob from Pahoa Self-Storage in U-Haul. And my question is two-part. First to electrical, HELCO. Is geothermal a viable source of energy for the area if all else should fail? And then to the water department, what are the conditions when the lava flows over a line that's buried that would stop the transmission of water through that line?
Okay, so as to geothermal, again, we have two transmission lines that go in and bring power out of PGV. As long as we maintain one of those, we'll be fine. Geothermal will be fine. Without those two lines in there, if we lose both of those lines, the geothermal plant will be what we would call islanding. They would be standalone in there. For them to be able to generate power to then take up the load for that island area presents a lot of problems to them. But as Darryl and I and one of my assistant superintendents were talking about this morning, they are actively working with our production department to see if there are any alternatives so that in the event that the lava flow was bad enough and it took both the transmission lines out and PGV was islanded, is there a way to set them up so that they can run and power that down there? Again, I don't have an answer for that right now. There's people smarter than that looking at it, than me looking at that. But they do seem to think that there is a possibility that there's something that they can do. And I'm sure as soon as they are able to come out with more information on that, you'll hear about it. But it's not, it won't be an easy thing for them to do.
As far as if the lava flows over where our water line is located, I would imagine that, most of our lines are buried 3 to 4 feet deep, and the heat of that lava will probably melt the gaskets on that pipeline. So I'm thinking already, if the lava flows over the water line, there will be huge water leakage. And whether or not we can sustain that kind of leakage, I'm not sure. We could, wait and see, and before we isolate or shut off systems. But I think the worst case would be we'd have to shut off the water system on both sides of that flow, and hopefully we can provide water on both sides of that flow. I mentioned earlier, we have wells located close to the Pahoa High School and wells in Kianapoko. I'm not worried on the Kianapoko side because of our ability to transport water from the Ola Mountain View system. I'm worried about where our wells are located by the Pahoa High School, where I mentioned earlier that we're procuring an emergency contract to get that online as soon as possible.
Hi, my name is Russell Bowman. I'm one of the owners of the Pahoa Village Center. We have about 10 different tenants in our buildings right down there on Main Street. The way it's flowing right now, it looks like it's going to miss us just barely to the north. So my questions are twofold. One, if we get isolated either by Highway 130 or if it does make it, the flow makes its way all the way to the ocean, what's police presence going to be? How do we protect our assets if we can't maintain our businesses for a while until services return? How do we prevent looting, vandalism, that sort of stuff? My second question is partially an insurance question and partially an evacuation question. Evacuation question is going to be for you. At what range do you evacuate, like a forcible evacuation? Like if this thing's within 300 yards of our buildings, do you enforce an evacuation? If there's an enforced evacuation for businesses, is there any sort of insurance implications for that if we are physically prevented from doing our businesses, but our businesses aren't burned down? Thank you.
You want to answer the business question first?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, there are several types of insurance that the SBA would make available. Again, once a declaration of an emergency is made by the SBA, one would be physical disaster loans. Clearly that means the buildings or your assets. The other one is economic injury disaster loans, and the economic injury disaster loans means business interruption, destruction of inventory, destruction of assets. The SBA's comment is to make sure that your businesses are covered. And you want to, again, realize that these are loans, these are not grants. So, and there are also, in certain emergency cases for the SBA, small loans available to homeowners and renters that were impacted in the area for their personal property loss. So again, www.sba.gov will give you a good broad view of disaster preparedness and these different types of loans that I'm talking about.
And I apologize if I didn't run through all the priorities. We started off with connectivity, power, utilities, but security and safety is a high priority. As the question was asked, what provisions would be put in place if there's isolation to maintain security? Well, definitely having power does improve security with lights and that kind of thing at night. But we've already been discussing with police, again, the plans for increasing law enforcement presence, as well as they have themselves within both police and fire, they have workforce or employees that would be they reside on this side as well if we're talking about a possible isolation. So utilizing the workforce that might become isolated to provide that in-community presence, as well as I mentioned previously, already requesting assistance from the National Guard. And when we request assistance, the initial request was for the support with the establishment of the road. But as you saw with the storm event, it's also utilizing the National Guard to provide that security present as well as welfare checks in the communities. So there will be the mobilization of those resources, and it will be done before the road or any of the roads are cut off so that their assets are here, and if not, then it is a matter of airlifting those kinds of resources in, but providing and planning for it that the resources are here before there's any interruption in the transportation routes. And I think she had another question.
How long do we have to have?
Oh, sorry, the evacuation?
Yeah, there's an enforced evacuation.
Right. Some of the things that play into the decision to issue the evacuation are the various safety concerns with the lava flow and the movement. If it's going to create or present with health and safety issues related to, let's say, the fire and the smoke and conditions that are coming off with emissions, that would be one variable to consider in the directed or requested and required evacuation. The other thing, as I've shared, is you know, as the lava moves over areas where the vegetation or there's decomposition below grade, as well as you have subsurface pockets of methane, you know, in the sewer system, septic systems, they present with explosion hazards, as well as, depending what's in the environment. And we flew over some of the, I won't say fallow lands, there are many abandoned vehicles out there. There's also, you know, tires and other things out there that if the lava comes in contact, it's going to be producing various toxic fumes and gases. So all of those things would be weighed in the interest of health and safety for the community. So if you're asking for a distance or a time, it's going to depend on where the flow goes, what are some of the secondary hazards associated with that, obviously the rate at which the flow is moving, because we never want to see anyone get trapped or stuck. So it's all of those variables played into the decision with the evacuation. And, you know, we're just hopeful and optimistic that we'll get the cooperation of everyone, and that when we ask for the evacuation, it's done orderly and with respect for one another. As an example, when we implemented the restricted access at Kauai homesteads, you know, it's out of respect for those residents that are trying to move their belongings out of harm's way, including their livestock. And we realized by putting in a secured checkpoint, it created inconvenience for the residents, but it's also to provide for security by not allowing non-residents into the area, not having a systems of accountability. So all of those pieces are part of the evacuation process, as well as we've shared, is especially for the homeowner, and this would also apply, I would think, to business owners, is we realize that this may be your life savings that you've put into whatever it is, that property that's out there. If and when it is affected or taken away by the lava flow, it's allowing you or that homeowner the respect and dignity to deal with that in the appropriate manner, which is going to be a grieving process. We have experience with Kalapana residents requesting to be there when their house is taken away. And we'd like to respect those wishes, but also provide for their safety. The same would apply for the business community. Like I said, some of this is your hard-earned life savings, and we understand what that means to watch a slow, devastating process unfold. So I'm trying to be optimistic and hoping it doesn't come in anyone's way or take anyone's property, but should that happen, we'll work closely with the community on that.
Hello, Mike Hale, Big Island Auto Rentals. My question, I was under the impression that this was also concerning or at a meeting about the power grid. And the last time the power went out, geothermal went offline, I got gassed. I need to be able to stay awake and alive to conduct business. So will I be notified this time, or should I expect to be gassed?
I get it.
I mean, basically, we don't control PGV. That's a separate entity from us. So the controls, safety mechanisms that PGV has in place is theirs. Again, our employees and and the Hawaii Electric Light is going to do everything that they can to maintain the power to this area as best we can. And I think the recent storm has shown how dedicated and hardworking the Hawaii Electric folks are at getting the power back on and trying to maintain that. And I'm sure in this instance they'll do the same thing. But again, as far as questions to whether PGV will have some sort of a anomaly or whatever, as Hawaii Electric Light, I couldn't answer that. Maybe Mr. Oliveira could clarify a little better.
We have another special guest. He's got an empty chair here, Jay Ignacio. So when he comes and sits down, that's our HELCO representative, in case or our head of HELCO, rather. And we'll leave Heather Hedenshaw. Oh. The notification. And then let's get back to, I respect what you're asking, but I also want to make sure we keep it on the commercial side of things, because this is the entire business community here.
Well, one of the things with the notification, yes, we will do a better job of making sure that as soon as we're informed at Civil Defense of any upset on the operation that poses a potential for release, that we're letting the community know. And secondly, as you heard some of the discussion with the possibility of regionalizing the power and utilizing PGV as that distribution or generation and distribution source, it's also identifying what other safety measures could be in play to try to minimize that potential for a release.
Hi everybody, I'm Heather Hedenshaw, owner and principal broker of Big Island Brokers. First, I want to say thank you for coming and helping us with this trouble. We appreciate your help and we appreciate all that you've done for us. My questions relate to permitting. So we've got a lot of businesses in Pahoa that very likely are going to be impacted. I hope not, but let's be real. So the process for permitting to get a special use permit is pretty laborious and long. Is there any way that the county might consider streamlining that process so that businesses that need to relocate quickly can get up, move to a new location, and keep doing business on the other side of the flow? That's one question, is streamlining that permitting process to help small business get relocated. Two, there's going to be a lot of people probably dislocated and needing a place to live. The current home exemption states that, you know, for people that own their homes, they get a big deduction. Is there a way that we could maybe have a short-term period of time that if somebody that's can open their home to a dislocated tenant or property owner into their home, that it won't disavow their homeowner's exemption, so that maybe we can get a bunch of people that have that spare bedroom or that have that back studio to be utilized during this emergency time period. And that's my two questions. My final statement is that you might have heard that insurance is not available in lava zones 1 and 2 by the regular carriers. That might be true. HPIA, the original insurance company that the Board of Realtors and our late Bob Herkes helped create, the state insurance plan is available. We can get policies for people in lava zones 1 and 2 right now. It is totally available. If you have transactions in escrow and you've been told you can't get insurance, you can through HPIA. So, you know, check if your insurance is being considered to be non-renewed, and you have a loan, you can get insurance through HPIA. So 2 questions and 1 statement. Thank you so much.
On the question of the permitting, you know, that's something that's not necessarily within civil defense, but I'm going to take that back to the officials that deal with the permitting and see what latitude or flexibilities will be put into the permitting system, as you pointed out, with the possibility of people relocating businesses or considering other construction projects to deal with this situation. So I'll take that information back to our building division and the regulatory bodies within the county and state.
Aloha, my name is Susie Osborne. I'm the principal of Kuokala Charter School. We're located on the Red Road between Pohiki and Kapoho. And while we've been trying to get electricity for years down there, we currently don't have, which might be a blessing, because we are solar run with backup generator. And actually, Dan, your comment made me want to come forward. So this is more of an offer than a question, because we're well positioned to be able to take care of your mobile health concerns, if so is needed. Also helicopter landing pads, any of the government agencies that need to have vehicles or anything like that, we have a secure facility with 600 acres. So I just invite that opportunity.
My name is Petra Wiesenbauer and I have a bed and breakfast in Leilani Estates. I would like to thank everybody, first of all. It's been really great to have all these updates and, you know, daily online, but also with the meetings. It has been mentioned before that one of the concerns or the goals should be to lighten the traffic load as much as possible on the, you know, substandard roads. And I wanted to ask you if there's a consideration by the county to maybe implement, you know, more bus services to shuttle people to maybe a park and ride, you know, place where somebody could park a second vehicle and then you can go and run your errands in Hilo or whatever, and then come back on the shuttle. Because I think if there could be a shuttle like every hour or something like that, it would really help to get a lot of other cars off the road.
Yes, there's been discussion not only with the impact that this lava flow could have on the existing mass transit or bus routes, but also how do we improve transportation within the areas and outside of the areas using more mass transit resources or services. And as an example, we did receive offers from one of the local tour company operators with, I want to say at least 9 passenger vans, if not bigger, volunteering their services if and when there should be a need for these smaller passenger vehicles that have large capacity. They'll provide those services as well. So we're receiving a lot of support and offers of assistance from even the private sector, the business sector, with resources that would be of value for things like that, as improving transportation, minimizing the number of cars, but then providing for volume of traffic flow. So yes, we are looking at all of those things as it would play into this scenario.
Aloha everyone, my name is Lori Kong. I'm the owner of Aloha Lehua Cafe. And you know, we have no control over Pele and where she's gonna go and what she's gonna take out and who she's, you know, what she's gonna destroy here. And we're all just here worried and wondering what's the outcome of it. And my main question is, my restaurant is located next to a gas station. And I know we have a grace period, you know, within days of evacuating before the lava reaches the highway. And I guess my question is, you know, concern for a lot of our business that is in shopping centers. What would be a good time frame for businesses to evacuate because of the gas stations being right there? You know, lava's coming on top. We don't know what's underneath. I know there's gas underneath next door to me, you know. We don't know the heat of the temperature that can ignite the fume from the gas station. I'm family owned, operated, run with me and my children, you know, and I told my husband, I said, this is serious. You know, when do I evacuate, or do I evacuate? Because if, you know, if the heat ignites the gas, I told my husband, you'll be left alone because here goes me and my children. Another thing is that I'm recently new in the community. I've been open for a year. We do a lot of local food, Hawaiian food. I do try to help the community as much as I can, and I know even though I'm worried about this and I have family that I have to evacuate or, you know, come to the point of evacuation, my concern is my aloha for my restaurant needs to continue. I told my husband we need to evacuate our equipment because I need to take it home, because I need to cook at home and some way come back into the community to continue feeding the community. It ain't about money, it's about keep giving food to the people that need, giving water, ice to the people that are stuck here. So I know this is not a perfect time, but if anybody has donations or offerings, please come and see me. I have a huge property, I can store stuff, but as soon as possible that I can know, because there's a gas station, that I can remove my equipment and take it home so I can continue feeding the community, because that's what I need to do, is come back out, find a way to come back into Puna and keep feeding and helping the community.
As far as the evacuation, as I said, we'll give the community days notice. This won't be hours out, this will be days out. And just as we recognize the challenges that the farmers or ranchers have with moving livestock, we also recognize the challenges for the business community with moving wares, goods, you know, machinery, equipment, stock, etc. So we want to give you as much time as possible. And as we rely heavily on forecast or analysis done by Hawaii Volcano Observatory of where the flow may go and when it may reach certain areas. So we'll keep you posted on that so that you can, one, make decisions for yourself. If you feel that we're not giving you enough time, that you need more time, you can start as soon as you feel you can and manage within your own capabilities. But definitely we're going to give you sufficient time so you can conduct an evacuation safely. We don't want people to be doing this in a very chaotic, hazardous conditions. We want to give people days notice so that it can be done safely.
Aloha, my name is Judy Moa. I'm an insurance broker and a FEMA adjuster. And I wanted to say thank you for being here and being proactive in terms of utilities and infrastructure. Thank you also, Hazel, for being here in terms of small business loans, etc. My direct question is, do we have federal representation here in terms of monetary support? We see that we just got through an event here and unfortunately we didn't see the representation. In terms of how it was conveyed as far as need goes, you don't see it here. Again, it's banking on the good nature of the people here to get through that event. So I'm hoping that you folks are seeking federal assistance in some way or another, because although Hazel's over here offering up great opportunities for business to prosper and continue, have business and personal clients in this district that are going to have long-term effects. So business interruption is not going to respond in terms of insurance. Where is our federal assistance? We're all taxpayers and we should get some help. And in terms of banking on people's good nature, thank you, Puna. You guys are awesome in terms of everybody that helped and Isel. But I hope that you folks go forward in terms of seeking the federal government for assistance in the right way, not necessarily mitigation services statewide, but services to Puna directly. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann, and we have a construction company, and I'm just wondering if you had any recommendations on the best way to, over public communication lines, hear what's going on without having to call in, or, because I know during this storm, the NOAA station went down, and the radio stations seemed to not be tuning in so much to the status of things. If there was just a place where there was a sort of ongoing status updates on what's happening, I thought that might be helpful.
And we're looking for, again, always trying to identify as many ways of keeping the community informed in a timely and accurate fashion. And one of the values with us using the local radio station, and if you're not getting timely messages that way, we'll work closer with them. And the reason for that is, especially when you look at an event that has the potential of affecting the whole state, like a weather event, when you turn on the TV, you're not going to get local information. You're going to get Oahu-centric information. The value with the local radio stations is they provide information that is local specific, that's pertinent to your area. So that's one of the I want to say, more reliable tools that we use. Well, we can work with them if you're not getting messages. With this current status of the eruption, we're asking them to play messages no less than every half hour. So at least every half hour, and we're trying to even coordinate with them. Can they set the time so you know when to tune in for that message rather than randomly every half hour, maybe every hour and on the half hour, so that you know when the next message will be coming up. Currently, we're doing just daily messages because there hasn't been significant change throughout the day. If conditions warrant and we start to see challenges and issues occurring more frequently, we will update the messages more frequently. The other means that we will keep you informed is, one is our website, Civil Defense. If you just go to County of Hawaii, click on the Department for Civil Defense, there is a web page there. Hawaii Volcanoes Observatory's website has the same information for the most part. And then our mass notification system. And over the last couple of weeks during the community meetings, we had tremendous sign up from the community in our mass notification system. So thank you if you weren't part of that for signing up, because it's another tool we can use, especially in emergency situations, to send out messaging to you via text, email, or even voice if need be. and it can be done geographically if you provided us with your address, so we can actually pick a subdivision or a geographical area and have the message specific for that. So we're looking at every tool we can find to keep you informed. And that even goes down to the amateur radio community. They've been a tremendous asset, the ham operators. We've used them with various events to include ISL. They are dialed into our CERT teams as well, the community emergency response teams. And our goal is to have as many amateur radio systems operational so that if you know an amateur radio member in the community or at one of your community centers, the information coming out of our office will be consistently shared through those networks as well. So if you, again, welcome ideas, because there's a lot much smarter people out here that can share with me your thoughts on how we can keep you better informed, but those are the tools we currently use.
Hi, Julie Paul with Pahoa Properties. One thing that, since we're all together and we're kind of leaders in our community, one of the things that we're going to need desperately if the lava does enter into a subdivision is rentals. So if any of you here in this room can keep that awareness, because that's one of going to be the big issues. And I don't know what the county has planned for people once their houses are flowed over, but we are in a rental crisis right now. There are not a lot of rentals available, so that's one of our big issues. And as commercial business people in Pahoa, our ear is to the ground, so we will hear about them. So that's going to be something important. Tuesday, a week ago, I stood up in the meeting and I questioned the fact that we're using one road in, one road out, and we're sharing that road with people, business people, schools, and people that are already evacuating. And I asked the question, when will Glover be out of KL? Because that's a very frustrating situation right now driving through there, and I want to know what's going to be done, because as we're evacuating or as people are evacuating, there's going to be people coming to look at the lava from that side. And you're also going to be bringing in heavy equipment, you're going to be bringing in base course, and how are we all going to use that one road when we haven't shut down the construction that's there right now, and when would that construction be pulled? And, you know, how are we going to deal with the visitors that want to come over to this side? Thank you.
And on that question, with regards to the ongoing construction, one is if you've driven through there recently, there is a significant grade difference that poses a safety hazard if you look at what's there. They're trying to expedite that work to make it as safe as possible and expedite the project in anticipation of a possible, you know, further down the road impact. So that the State Department of Transport understands and appreciates the challenges that exist currently and how they can be exacerbated by the lava flow. So they're going to be trying to expedite that as well as address that safety issue currently.
Matt Purvis with Tin Shack Bakery, just opened up about a year ago. And I sort of wanted to piggyback off of two of the comments. Sort of a question, also comments though, regarding what Heather Hedenshaw said about the streamlined process, the idea of having a streamlined process of whether it's individuals looking to, for instance, move their businesses, or potentially maybe even an area opened up. And I'm thinking more along the lines of, let's say the lava completely cuts us off, not in a couple weeks. For my business and for some businesses here, though not all, half of my employees will be cut off from even coming to work. But they're already trained, they know the recipes, they know how to do everything, and I honestly, to my own heart, believe that we could open another one up right up there and everyone keeps their job and maybe even prosper, because there'll be a lot of people coming to see the lava. And maybe that's true of a lot of businesses, and so if that was a potential, then I'm already going to begin looking regardless, but that would maybe save a lot of people jobs and businesses. And I really feel what Nancy from Aloha Lehua said, same thing. It's everybody having their jobs, and it's not all about the money in it, but I think it could save a lot of jobs. And then with internet, I understand it's extremely complicated and it's all tied in with HELCO, and it's not as if you can have an answer right now, but just right off the top of my head, I can think of a number of people who make their income online. Many of those people maybe would stay if they knew they could keep, maybe they in the stock market, or they do various kinds of things online. I wonder if it would be cheap. It seems like it would be relatively inexpensive to set up even satellite dishes or something like that to maintain that, and that might keep certain people in business here, and that's money coming from all over the world to Hawaii without added traffic on the road. So that's it. I just wanted to bump that, the idea of opening up potentially a commercial center or space on the other side.
Well, definitely said with the permitting and the request for possible space for business relocation, we'll take that back to those departments and their responsibility. And on the connectivity, like I said, communications, we realize how critical it is, not just for business purposes, but for people to stay informed. You know, the internet is such a valuable tool that we'd like to maintain that so people can stay informed, as well as maintain connectivity with family and friends elsewhere who are going to wonder on the welfare of people who might be stuck.
My name is Colleen Mandala, and my husband and I own commercial property in Pahoa. And so a couple of days ago, I got my insurance policy out. I'm sure a lot of you have done the same thing. And I called my insurance agent. And I said, how does this all work? And she said, you don't have lava coverage, Colleen. And I said, I'm aware of that, but I do have fire coverage. So if my building burns before the lava comes, am I covered? And she said, I'll have to talk to the company about that and get back to you, which she hasn't. But my question is, I'm assuming that if the building is not swallowed by Pele and it burns first, that I do have fire insurance coverage, but how do I know? I'm evacuated. I mean, I don't have a picture. What happens? And I understand that there isn't a representative here from the insurance companies, but there should be.
Well, one is, if this event unfolds and there's the possibility, as was mentioned earlier, seeking federal programs, we'd be documenting the damages as they occur. So we would be trying to capture that on some form of video or photography, as well as I mentioned, if it is safe to do so, we would allow residents and business owners to remain. And again, it's a matter of, I want to say, closure, as well as the grieving process with watching some of your, again, hard-earned monies, unfortunately, go away. So I think there's going to be opportunity to document what actually transpires on some of these events, and we would provide that information to you and your insurance company as well.
And Colleen, just as a follow-up, I will keep trying, and we'll have a follow-up meeting with business owners. I'll bring the insurance commissioner here if we have to get some clarification, because it's a very important notation in our insurance policies.
Kate Draco, Hawaiian Beaches Water Company. I just wanted to find out from HELCO, if we lose power, we have a generator that we can operate to service the 1,100 homes in there. How will we get diesel, or will we not get cut off from there? I'm not sure exactly where we get our power from. My second question is, we have nearly all of our infrastructure underground, as does water supply, but because we're privately owned, we're personal guarantors to all our loans, including SBA loans. What happens when, just say, if the lava even went around us and got the subdivision and we were still there and we didn't get business interruption or any other insurance, but we no longer had customers and we're personally liable? Is there any forgiveness in an emergency situation, or would we still be personally responsible for all these loans?
Well, as far as the water company, I know during the storm you had the same issue. You lost power there, where you folks were looking for a generator. We don't normally. Oh, you have a generator. Okay. Yeah, again, you know, we would try to keep HELCO's system functioning, but as far as your personal generator, we wouldn't be able to supply any type of diesel or, unless I'm missing it. I don't understand what your question was.
If the lava flow goes where they're predicting and just say Kakakai Boulevard's cut off, would that mean that we wouldn't have power in Hawaiian beaches? Do you know, or where is it that the lava flows that would, where there would be no longer power in Hawaiian beaches? Because say the lava crosses the highway here, Hawaiian beaches would still possibly have at least a week, 2 weeks before we're inundated. So we would still be required to continue to be providing water. So if we had no power, we'd have to run on generators, so then we would need diesel coming in from somewhere. So my question is, if it comes where it's predicted, will we have power, or should we be preparing to organise daily diesel deliveries or?
Yeah, as we looked at the maps with Daryl this morning, it depends where the lava are going to go. But there is a possibility, yes, if it crosses the road, it may result in losing power to your subdivision. However, like I stated earlier, we are actively looking at alternatives to get a secondary feed in to feed from a different way. Our hope is that we will have enough time to get that in and before it crosses the road. Obviously, there's no guarantees, but even if it did cross the road, you may be without power for a period of time until we could get that other line in. Again, it's anybody's guess as to where the lava is going to go. But if it crosses the road there, then the possibility that you would lose power, yes, I would say you would. But we are, again, we're actively looking at alternatives in the event that that happens, that we can maintain the supply.
Sure. On the question of the diesel, similar to the needs for healthcare facilities like the hospitals, there's priority given to where fuel would be available to. So a water distribution system would be a priority because again, it's serving a critical health and safety need for the community. So diesel fuel would be arranged for and coordinated, not necessarily saying free, but it would be at least a source be made available for the businesses. Like I said, the hospitals are a priority, public safety agencies are a priority so that they have fuel to run. And that's for any kind of a disaster, whether it's something like this, a hurricane, or a tsunami. If you can picture the worst case scenarios, we have an event that takes out our harbors and there is no fuel supply, it's going to be sustained. So the prioritization of fuel resources that are available would go to those critical health and safety needs.
So on the question regarding SBA loans, the thing to remember about the SBA loan is when you suffer a loss, this loan may not be big enough to cover the loss that you suffered for the business or for your home. So the first line of defense obviously is insurance, insuring the business with things like key man insurance, business continuity insurance for just these occasions, general liability insurance. So the SBA loan, again, once a disaster is declared, comes in with, it may be a percentage of what you really need. So you really want to have the business covered as best as you can. Two more websites that might help you online. One is called www.readyrating.org. READYRATING.org, and that is American Red Cross Ready Rating Program. It's a free online tool that assesses your business's readiness. And then the other one is www.preparemybusiness.org, and that has all the checklists that we're on the back table to help you assess and develop your crisis management plan.
We already have an SBA loan, and we wouldn't be looking to borrow money because we would no longer have a customer base. my question is, as a personal guarantor of substantial loans, what happens in this kind of disaster? Am I still held liable?
What I would recommend in this case is contacting the SBA or any other federal loan that you might have and making some sort of an alternate arrangement plan for payment. Once you have a federal loan of any type, you want to make sure that that is something you never default on, because one default kind of excludes you from the program for the rest of your time. They're very, very strict. So what I would recommend is if you have a loan already, contacting the SBA and negotiating some sort of a deferment of the payment, extension of the loan, something to give you some relief in what may be approaching.
Thank you. Rob Tucker with Castle Block. I really appreciate the breadth of the questions and the answers. On a secondary, maybe not top priority, is there any coordination going on with the Postal Service to keep our businesses operating with the Postal Service? And is there any coordination going on with our banking services so that we don't lose banking, for a period of time? And then lastly, with the county, is there any thought to having a secure yard north of this flow for people's business vehicles where they can, rather than just park them randomly in neighborhoods, could there be a secure place for business vehicles to be placed on evacuation? Thank you.
Again, a great suggestion, and something that might have been overlooked, is the parking of business vehicles. So I'll be taking that into consideration. But as far as the banks, I've been in contact with the banks that are here in Pahoa. They're going through their response plans. The post office was something that was overlooked until yesterday. So we are making contact with the post office, realizing again that's again another critical lifeline for business and even for just personal needs. So we are working with the post office as well.
Great, thank you.
And just as a side note, we have our postmaster in the audience and we have two of our bank managers here, and I just asked them to stay to the end and make a personal connection with you. So Renee?
Good afternoon. I noticed in the paper that HELCO has opened a docket with the PUC asking to put in more poles. And I'm wondering, haven't we learned our lesson by now after all the albezias fell on the power lines, and with lava coming down, if the lava was underground or if the lines were underground, then the lava would go right over the top of it and you wouldn't have to worry about how will we continue to provide service and collect our money at the same time. So I'm wondering about why aren't we thinking outside of the box about undergrounding those utility lines? The Federal Highways Commission allows 10% of money for state highways to be used for beautification purposes. The state legislature years ago agreed that part of those beautification purposes not only would have to be landscaping, could also be undergrounding of utility lines. Every time you have to replace some poles, you could do it in phases, affordable phases, and just put those underground. I really am tired of hearing excuses that, oh, the lava is too hard, we can't dig trenches to put lines underground. They do it with sewers, they do it with the water department, they'll teach you how to do it, they do it all the time. We could protect our transmission lines, and a nice byproduct of that would be that we wouldn't have to look at those ugly wires every time we want to look at our beautiful mountain. Thank you.
Can we get a HELCO comment on underground utilities and the additional poles in spite of?
I know Roger wants to answer this. He's dying to answer it, but I'll take this up. I'm not exactly sure what docket you're referring to. I do know we have public hearings tomorrow evening with respect to transmission line projects that are in West Hawaii. These are indeed overhead transmission line projects. The docket doesn't pertain to the recent response to Hurricane Isel. Basically, the cost comparison between going underground and overhead is the reason why we have predominantly overhead lines. Cost of undergrounding is like 10 to 16 times more than doing it overhead. And that's primarily the reason. We can work with groups or customers if they would like to work with us and help sponsor undergrounding of lines versus overhead. That is a possibility.
I think what you really need to do is factor in some of the costs that you're not factoring in when you're figuring out if this is cost effective or not. For example, the cost to all the people who lost power, who had to go the extra mile and pay expenses that otherwise they wouldn't have to pay, like running around trying to get ice because their refrigerators weren't working anymore because they had lost power. The people who don't have power right now, and the people who don't have telephone service right now, because their answer machines aren't working because if they didn't have power. You know, there's also, businesses lost money because the lines were down. People had to pay other people to come on their property and cut away the trees that had fallen on the power lines. That cost them money. You didn't pay for those things, you know? But you're only looking at your own bottom line, and you're not looking at the ramifications about how much it cost everybody else in this community. So when you start thinking about how much is it going to cost us, please look at the externalities too, because that is mandated, as far as I know, that you're supposed to consider externalities. Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to bring up Brady Metcalf. Is there anybody else with any questions? Line up, otherwise we're going to move toward closing.
Okay, I have just a couple of small logistical questions. There's a group of people, individuals in Pahoa, that kind of live outside the system, and you may have noticed them sitting over there under the tents from day to day, or when I got here early for this meeting and there's one of them sleeping in the doorway. But, I mean, without besmirching their character, if any part of an evacuation became necessary, is there any agency or organization looking at these people? I mean, not that, you know, if you left them alone in Pahoa, some of them might decide it was a field day and, you know, if there was nobody here watching the businesses. That's the first question. The second question is, with rerouting all the traffic into Paradise Park and out to the highway, with the, I don't know how many, what, 45,000 people or whatever the hell we have out here, everybody using that same narrow roadway that isn't designed to be a highway, is there any scenario that you would look at if the traffic became too much of a burden on that subdivision and that access, that you might look at pushing Railroad or Beach Road all the way through to Hilo?
Well, I think if you may have heard in previous community meetings, as the mayor said, I think every solution is being looked at and being considered as possible options. Again, how far does railroad go, and how do you minimize and adjust with the additional flow that will be going through some of these roads? And that includes also, you know, the county's looking at how we can partner with the Paradise Park Community Association or the Road Association on any improvements or issues that need to be done to improve, let's say, Makoo and Paradise Drive, to accommodate the additional flow. So all of those things are being worked on in anticipation of adding additional flow and, as you said, possible other routes or extension of some of these routes.
My name is Dana Kenny. I'm the principal broker of Savio Realty. I got three things that I wanted to ask about. One is, because we're a building, we own so many buildings, I have a civil defense card that gives me a little elevated access in the emergency situations. We've never used it, so one question is, what is that access? The second thing is, there's other people like me in the audience that don't have those cards, and I'm wondering if there's an expedited process where some of them who have legitimate needs could get them, because clearly it's going to become a useful tool soon. Third thing was Julie Paul brought up the rental housing situation. I've been studying this for a while now, because you have to. The rental housing situation is not going to be a problem on the Pahoa side of the flow. The problem is going to be on the Hilo side of the flow, because all of these families that need to work, children need to go to school, they can't drive chain of greatest roads practically, as a matter of practicality. But when we had the hurricane, there's a provision in the law for price fixing on commodities. Is there one that would control housing? Because that, I think, for 6 or 8 months to a year could be a very critical thing. The third thing is, it's one thing for the government to set systems up. It's entirely different to have competent people running those systems. Ma'am, every time I listen to you, I thank God that you're there. So thank you for your service.
And so the passes and also price fixing on rentals.
And I'll go back and check within Act 111, which was the statute that was rewritten this past session, that changed a lot of the original civil defense rules at the state level down. It gave the mayor more clarity on his authorities, as well as it more clearly delineated the governor's authorities as well. I don't recall reading in the statute, again, it's new, and I apologize, I don't have the answer for you, whether it addresses rental or property. It does have language in there referencing the original language with price fixing to prevent the gouging of the public. So I'll go back and look into that and share that with the community. As far as the passes, the civil defense passes originated out of the need for businesses to get into the tsunami evacuation areas. When we issue an evacuation for a tsunami, as you can imagine, there's many businesses, boat owners, etc., that need to move properties out. We can look at implementing that same practice or policy, or expanding that for the potential evacuation in a community as it relates to the eruption. So if you have a business and you have critical employees that might need to be allowed access through an evacuation barricade or through a corridor for the purpose of securing your business, removing irreplaceables and business materials, just send me an email to our office, Civil Defense at hawaiicounty.gov. List your employees on there that would need to have passes, and we'll work with you on getting those passes. And if we don't have the passes in time for something like this, we would be working. One of the things that maybe is a mystery to the community is what takes place in the Emergency Operations Center when we have an event. But every agency is present in there, including the police department. So let's say you had employees that needed to get into a business past a barricade. All we would need is somebody calling us and saying, I'm with Savio Realty. I have 3 employees trying to get in. They're coming out from Hilo. They're going to be coming down 130. They need to get access. We would then work with the police officer through the liaison in the EOC, who has immediate radio contact with the officer saying, let this group of people through. They are authorized to go through. We do have the passes available, and we'll expand that to apply to something like this as well.
Okay, and so I don't see anybody lined up, but, we have someone coming. Hold on.
Aloha, I'm Olivia from Spa Paradisimo down the street. I thank you all for coming, totally appreciate it. Wish we could gather like this for our homeless and our drug addicts. It'd be really good for our businesses. I kind of just am very concerned with what I experienced after the hurricane, which is the hoarding that happened, and then the distribution of commodity just afterward. So I would like to impress upon all of you who distribute goodies to us to really dig up ways that you might be able to, prepare our community for the disaster mentality. Like maybe only trucks go to Hilo today, or sedans or minivans, or businesses, what have you. So that's just a comment that I have, because it was very difficult, even being, supportive and understanding and generous and all that good stuff, because there's only takes a few to really make it difficult. So thank you.
Okay, and we have Ray Miyazono here. He is with Big Island Moving, and if you would like to come up, he has a very generous proposal.
Hello, I have a storage company in Hilo. We're on 69 Railroad Avenue. I live here in Pahoa, and as you heard, we have storage. So what I'm offering everybody in Puna, I can't give free storage, but we have what's called commercial lift ends. They're 4 feet wide, 7 feet high, 7 feet tall. They run usually about $50 a month, but I'm for you guys $20 a month. I had 20-foot containers. I had 20 of them. I'm down to like 6 today. That's all I got since I got out here. Might be all gone, but those run about $200 a month. I was gonna give it for about $85 a month. So if any of you are interested in storing stuff at my place, feel free. Thank you.
And then we also have a woman in the audience who is expressing concern about the cell phone tower being built down in the Hawaiian shores. And she's hoping that you can put that on your notepad as something that needs to be expedited in advance of this potential threat. And I also would like to call up Dexter Doi with Malama Market to say a few words. Aside from Island Naturals, and Island Naturals, you're welcome to come up too, basically to give their plan on, they provide us our food, so it's very important.
First of all, thank you, civil service providers out there. My name is Dexter Hironaga. I am the store manager at Malama Market. We're in the process of looking to beef up products in the store. I know if, God forbid, the disaster does happen, it's going to cut off the utilities. So being that the utility is not going to be available, we're trying to beef up dry stocks, canned goods, water. So we're in close communication with like Coca-Cola, who has provided us with water in the past. If the lava does cross the road, that's going to be a big impact on the community as well as the markets, because that's a primary source of transportation to get goods to us. So we're just hoping that everybody stay safe and prepare yourself. Thank you.
We have someone running to meet Dexter. I just had a request from a woman in the audience for Malama Market, and this would also apply to Island Naturals, to please not break down your boxes, and maybe there is a way that some of the community members that want to pack up or clear out can come and grab some boxes from you folks. The other announcement that I'd like to make is that I have a sign-up sheet over here on the side table right next to Mark Hinshaw, our wonderful Main Street Pahoa Association president, and Nancy Kramer, our treasurer. And if you could make sure you sign that, I am going to take up Colleen, and I'm going to try to get an insurance, either commissioner or a representative from an insurance company. And I feel like we may need to meet again. As far as the commercial side of things. If anybody's interested in that sort of meeting, please be sure to use the sign-up sheet. And the other thing is, if you could please kindly put the chairs over in the hall over here. Let's work together. And lastly, I just want to point out that this theater was generously donated today for this meeting by Sal Lukeen. On the sidelines, but he's also cooking today. We have so many of our business owners here in Pahoa. There's so much anxiety. We're having a big blowout sale at Jeff Hunt Surfboards, and I just really urge everyone to try to patronize these businesses as much as you possibly can. And if we become like Hana Maui, just remember you have a couple of pizza parlors, you have a couple of Thai food restaurants, you have a Mexican restaurant, and we just all need to pull together and help keep our community alive no matter what. So thank you all for coming.